Hi, I'm Maureen Mader, and this is Video Voters Guide, a service of the League of Women Voters, a 102-year-old nonpartisan organization that believes democracy depends on informed and active participation. For more election information, be sure to visit our online site, vote411.org, before you mark your ballot. Today, we'd like to welcome Angela Plowhead, candidate for U.S. Congressional District number 6. Hello, Angela.
Hi, Maureen. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Well, we'll kick this off by tell us a little bit about yourself and what are your top 3 issues in running for this office and how you would propose to solve them.
Absolutely. So I started my career as an intelligence analyst in the Air Force. Once I completed my service to the military, I went on to get my doctorate in clinical psychology. I worked in VA serving veterans for about 12 years and then ended up leaving VA and opening a private practice where I continued to serve veterans and other people that had difficulty receiving services through traditional means. And so I established my practice to see patients in their homes. My practice has grown, and now it's a group practice. And so through that, I have been an advocate for people with disabilities for a number of years, advocating at legislature and also working on community boards to manage things like budgeting and policy issues related to seniors and disabilities. So my top issues are, number one, ensuring our fundamental liberties are secured and that our Constitution is protected, that we are reforming education, that our children are going to the best schools that we can offer them, that they have the best opportunities, and so that we are actually teaching and addressing our issues in education and academics, that our communities are safe, and that we are reinvigorating our economy. And so, some of the ways that we can do that is, number one, one of the priorities of our legislature at Congress is to create policy and to ensure our safety as a nation. And so we do that through voting for bills that are constitutional and not voting for bills that do not regard our Constitution. And part of that is through our national defense. And so, with my background, I have a lot of experience with federal work and with the military and with intelligence. And so right now we have a bit of an intelligence crisis, a bit of a mental health crisis, as well as a bit of a crisis with our national defense. We're seeing that on multiple fronts. And so certainly serving on those committees and assisting with helping to establish policy or renegotiating policies that have been harmful to our nation in those ways. Through education, I believe that we need to have school choice. I think that the money should follow the child, and that we need to make sure that children have academic excellence. As someone who grew up in poverty, I know that it was because of the freedoms that we have in this nation and because of the academic excellence that I was able to receive through my education, that I was able to rise out of poverty and to become the first person in my family to go to college, much less get a doctorate. And so there are a lot of things that we can do for our economy. Establishing energy independence is something that we can do. Again, we have done it before. It's where we were not too long ago. And it's something that also certainly impacts our national security as well.
Okay.
I think we can lower our tax burden on our citizens, and also that we can do things like limit the impact of inflation through more fiscal responsibility.
Okay, over the past 2 decades, women's participation in the labor force has been declining, and rising child care costs are partly to blame. What should be done at the federal level to address these issues?
I think that there are a number of reasons or a number of things that have impacted the impact on women in the workforce. We saw in the pandemic that because of the closures and the lockdowns, that women were disproportionately impacted, that we started to see many women that ended up needing to stay home to take care of their children and were having to leave the workforce. And many of those women have not returned. And part of that has to do with childcare costs, but a lot of it has to do with what was happening in schools. And so I think part of that is ensuring that our schools are teaching information that's appropriate, teaching information that is like I said, getting back to academic excellence, so that way women can feel comfortable returning to the workforce. The other thing that I think is happening is that there's been a bit of an assault on women and women's rights in the last couple of years or last few years. We have seen a push towards a preference for people that are gender dysphoric over women that are biological women, and them having to compete against biological men in sports, which reduces their opportunity for things like scholarships and their role in women's sports. And so that's a serious concern to me, because I feel like we're setting back women's rights a number of decades through a lot of the policies that are currently in place. We've seen that happen on the national level with Ivy League sports and swimming. We've also seen it happen at the Olympic level with things such as, or categories such as weightlifting. And so there's a lot of loss of opportunity there for women to get scholarships to go on and then get higher education. And then that leads to fewer opportunities in jobs. So those are things that I'm extremely concerned about, and I think we need to be paying attention to. I think we've also opened women up and girls up to things like sexual assault. So 90% of women are the people that are mostly affected by sexual assaults in our nation. And through that, we are seeing things like women being put into a position where they're being, their safe spaces, places where, they normally would only be surrounded by other biological women, being essentially invaded and being left more unsafe. We saw that in Loudoun County in Virginia, where 2 young women were raped in their high school bathroom. We've also seen that come out of a New Jersey prison, where there have been women that in a women's prison were then ended up becoming pregnant through having transgender inmates housed with them. So, and filing lawsuits around harassment and lawsuits. So I think we're not doing enough to protect women in those situations and providing them a safe space. And so I want to make sure that our women and girls are kept safe, and that victims of sexual assault do not have to be placed in situations where they're then left exposed and uncomfortable.
Okay. Well, to wrap it up, I know this goes very quickly. We want to give you an opportunity in a minute or so to tell voters why they should vote for you.
You're right. This has gone quickly. So, I think at this point in time, we're in a situation where our children are failing academically. Oregon has some of the worst rates of academics in the nation. We have the highest rates of prevalence of mental health disorders with very little ability for our state to actually address them. There's been lots of money, but not a lot of opportunity as far as where people can receive service. So that's certainly an issue, and one that can be addressed at the federal level. There are a lot of issues that we have right now with the safety in our communities. Human trafficking is an extremely huge issue. Oregon ranks as some of the highest in the nation for human trafficking. And so, we want to protect our younger people through that. There's also a high rate of human trafficking related to agricultural trafficking. And so I'm writing an initiative at this point to help stem that here in our state, and hopefully to take that same thing as a blueprint to the National Congress to work on it there as well. We have an opportunity right now in this nation to really turn around our education system so that our children are able to go on and achieve. When we lower academic standards, we're actually harming our children. You know, as a biracial woman who grew up in a very disadvantaged area, I was able to utilize the information that I learned in school to go on and better my life. I'm concerned that right now we are shortchanging and we're actually harming our children and our communities of color by lowering the standards that we're addressing now. I think we need to expect academic excellence effort and help them to achieve it.
Okay. Angela, thank you so much for talking with us today. We really appreciate your time in helping us get out the message to voters. And voters, don't forget to visit vote411.org for complete candidate and ballot measure information. Thank you. Hi, I'm Maureen Mader, and this is Video Voters Guide, a service of the League of Women Voters, a 102-year-old nonpartisan organization that believes democracy depends on informed and active participation. For more election information, be sure to visit our online site, vote411.org, before you mark your ballot. Today we have David Russ, candidate for U.S. Representative from District Number 6. Welcome, David.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Great. Well, we'll kick this off by tell us a little bit about yourself and what your top 3 issues are in running for this office and how you would propose to solve them.
Well, I'm a businessman. I've been a businessman for over 40 years. I've operated small businesses. I've served as corporate executive for over 30 years, been on corporate boards for over 25 years, and now have 8 years in city government. These experiences, I believe, has really led me to a point where I am the best representative at this point offered in District 6. I have a depth and breadth of experience that gives me knowledge on nearly every area that government deals with. Volunteering, infrastructure, construction, funding, real estate, just the whole gamut. So that when something comes across my desk, I have some background knowledge. And I found as Mayor of Dundee that this has saved the city, the constituents, lots of time and money. The way government works is someone will, or the leaders, go to their staff and say, we're planning on doing something, research it, and come back to us with a recommendation. Well, often staff believes that they can steer what's going on. They do research in a direction that they like to see things happen and exclude certain information from their reports. When these reports came to City Council, oftentimes I would say, well, these are very good reports, but you did not look into this area. There's this other solution that could work better, and then send them back to do the extra research that ended up making things be more efficient and less costly. So I think that's really an important point when you're looking to a representative, because for over 40 years, I've been listening to politicians talk, and if you go by what they say, one might think that the most important qualifications for a representative are the ability to read and repeat news headlines, or living in your town, going to your school, maybe even being in the military for a little bit. As a longtime businessman, I know that if those are the only criteria you use to hire somebody, you will probably end up with a very bad hire. So I'd like to encourage the people of the district, who I consider to be my hiring manager, will be my boss when I get elected, to look deeply into their candidates and their qualifications to perform the job. So my top priorities are kind of different than what you might hear. I have one overarching priority and then kind of dual priorities that fall behind that. The one overarching priority is to return the federal government operations to be within the Constitution for the United States of America. That document states that the federal government's job, or the powers given to the federal government, are to manage national security, oversee interstate commerce, and tabulate national elections. Our federal government has expended way beyond that point, doing thousands and thousands of other things. So that needs to be reeled in. And if that's done, then we will have a severe reduction in the budget beyond what people can even imagine. They talk about doing a balanced budget amendment, but as an accountant, I know that that's kind of an illusion to bring people in and get them on your side. The truth is that when you say we're going to always pay within our budget, means that no matter how high you place the bar, you'll stay under it, which really doesn't do anybody any good. The other thing people like to do is say, well, we'll trim budgets here and there. Well, 2 to 5% cutting here and there really doesn't make up the difference. Inflation eats that right back up and you're back to where you started. And we won't be paying our debt along the way. So that's my main goal to accomplish in Congress. Now, I realize sometimes due to the establishment, due to the cooperation I have to have with 234 other Congress members, things may not be able to happen like that in one fell swoop. So I would use other experience I have used throughout my life in dealing with situations where people are doing things in an unsavory manner. I'm always willing to play a game with people with the rules that they play, even if they're not the rules that are actually supposed to be in place. As long as everyone plays by the same rules, then we can go on with the game. And so for many, many years, the progressives have been taking away rights from people and overstepping the bounds of the federal government in an incremental manner. So my efforts would be to incrementally start taking back those rights and giving them back to the people. Often people ask about what are the biggest issues facing the district. Well, there are so many. The budget sucks, the inflation sucks, the border sucks, on and on and on. And the truth is they should be able to handle those things at their level. And the federal government should be out of their way so that they can. So going back to my desire to return to the Constitution, is what that does is it returns the power back to the cities, counties, and states. And once I've returned the power to my district, I intend to stand with my constituents and walk into Salem with them to get things right in our district.
Okay. What role does Congress have in the assimilation of refugees that the U.S. accepts?
I really like the way you asked this question with the what role, because the role is none. I mean, there is one. They should stay out of the way of having immigrants become assimilated. For many years, the federal government has been pushing ways to enable immigrants to not assimilate, which has been very damaging to our society. So basically, if the federal government would get out of the way and stop enabling people to not assimilate, then our local agencies could do more to help them assimilate. Much like other things, homeless issues or such, where they want to throw money at it or attack it from way at the top. These things are really best handled on the street at the lowest level, where people who care, benevolent organizations, or just one-on-one can look people in the eye and say, we want to help you and we want you to become part of our community, and we'll do what we can to help you assimilate.
Okay. Are you satisfied with the current regulations on campaign spending in federal elections? Why or why not? And if not, what reforms would you support?
Well, I'm not really satisfied. I believe that there's loopholes that allow large amounts of money to come in from unverified or unsavory sources. And it creates an imbalance in ways that don't reflect the wants and needs of the people. I really believe that, especially in the economy we're facing now, your average voter is not donating much, but there's still these candidates that are ending up with millions and millions of dollars that are not coming from the direct constituents that would be represented by these candidates. So yes, something does need to happen, and limitations of corporate donations or limitations of outside source donations. There is a very interesting twist of law in that my personal campaign committee cannot accept more than $2,900 from any individual. But if I create a PAC, then any individual can donate anything they want, and then that PAC can translate that money right down to my committee. So what happens is, since the money can be accepted from anywhere in the country, we end up with people that support things like CRT or whatnot donating money in large amounts to PACs that then translate that money down to the actual individual campaign committees. Well, luckily for me, I believe in the people. And I do not believe, like these people that dump all the money into the campaigns, that the people will vote for the person who bought the most television advertising. I think people are much smarter than that nowadays. They're going to dig in and they're going to find the best candidate, the most qualified candidate, and they'll vote for that person. But in the end, the money is a problem because it starts to affect the culture and the way things are viewed. So I really honestly don't believe I have all the answers on this. I think, 2 heads are better than 1 and 234 heads are better than 20. So we'll get together in Congress and hash this out.
Okay. Well, to wrap this up, I just wanted to give you, in a minute or less, the opportunity to tell voters why they should vote for you.
Well, they should vote for me because, as my campaign slogan says, Russ is for us. Russ is for us is not just a cute little slogan. It's about that I need your help to get elected, and I will need your help when I'm in office to get things done. I really like what you say in the beginning about having an informed and active participation. Sorry, I had that written down, had to look. As a congressman, what I intend to have be the crusade of my tenure. Often people at this level of office not only have things they intend to accomplish at the government level, but things they do culturally. And so what I would like to do is really work toward getting the voters of this country engaged and informed. Because this country was set up like a corporation. We have a board of directors, which that's you and me and the voters, that puts a president in place and then observes and watches that person operate and is supposed to remove them if they're not properly functioning. In order to be a good board member, as I've learned over many years, you have to be engaged and informed. Unfortunately, our electorate has been relaxing and enjoying the best economy on the planet for over half a century. And they've decided, in those years, well, things are so good, why should I have to worry about it? Why do I need to jump up and scream? Well, today, there's a lot of people jumping up and screaming and getting into action. So we need to keep them there. We need to keep them interested in becoming more informed and more engaged on a continuous basis and keep those people informed and engaged. I honestly believe that if our electorate had been informed and engaged throughout this country's history, we would not be facing the trials that we face today in this country. So going back to, me as a candidate, as I've said, I have a wide depth and breadth of experience. I've worked in a few different manufacturing sectors and done quality management. One of the biggest things we work on there is root cause analysis. And in analyzing what people are doing and thinking and the legislations that they take and actions they do in Congress, I really don't believe anyone there is looking at root cause. I have ideas that, say, for law and order, they're talking about the enforcement arm of this is how we'll deal with law and order. Well, the truth is, I believe our men in blue are doing a good job and that they will continue to do a good job. That there's other things that have been getting in their way or the process beyond them that has failed. So we have attorney generals and district attorneys that are not prosecuting things on a regular basis. What we need to do is put requirements on them that they need to prosecute a minimum number of cases that are provided to them by law enforcement. And then that would start a cycle that gets people more concerned about committing crimes because they'll actually have to face the facts when they do so, and it'll start getting district attorneys to actually prosecute people because that's how they'll be able to maintain their job.
Great. Well, David, thank you so much for talking with us today. We really appreciate your time. And voters, don't forget to visit vote411.org for complete candidate and ballot measure information before you vote. Thank you.